Hey Spurs, I want to introduce to you theme. So this week we're going to be focusing on the theme of a story. So let's look at our anchor chart. Thinking about theme, the theme of a story is the message, lesson, or moral the author wants you to learn. So things you can think about is, what did the author want us to think about? Where does it show up in the story? So common themes could be something about courage, or having perseverance, meaning like not giving up, having acceptance, lessons about cooperation, loyalty, good versus evil, kindness, friendship and love, and compassion. Those are just a few examples. So when you're trying to figure out the theme of a story, which you will, because you're going to take a fiction story and you're going to determine the theme of that story, you're going to ask yourself, what idea stays with you? How do the characters grow or change? Okay, so this week we're going to fiction, because fiction books are the books that are going to have a theme, not your informational books. So please make sure that you read fiction this week. We're going to look through Enemy Pie. I know we've read this in class before, but I figured it'd be a good way to review it again and figure out the theme of the story together. So if you like, you can pull it up by clicking on the link that's under Monday's lesson plan, and it'll pull right up as soon as you click it. Okay, so let's go ahead and start reading. Enemy Pie by Derek Munson. It should have been a perfect summer. My dad helped me build a treehouse. My sister was at camp, and I was on the best baseball team in town. It should have been a perfect summer, but it wasn't. It was all good until Jeremy Ross moved into the neighborhood. I didn't like Jeremy Ross. He laughed when he struck me out. He had a party on his trampoline, and I wasn't invited. Jeremy Ross was the only person on my enemy list. I never even had an enemy list before, but he came along, and I needed one. I hung it up in my treehouse where Jeremy Ross was not allowed. Dad understood stuff like enemies. He told me that when he was my age, he had enemies too, but he knew a way to get rid of them. He pulled an old recipe book off the kitchen shelf. Inside was a scrap of paper with faded writing. Dad squinted at it. Squinted means to kind of look like, close your eyes and look closely. Enemy Pie, he said, satisfied. Pause and think. Why doesn't the narrator like Jeremy? They use the word narrator because in the story that we're reading, they don't give the boy a name, but the narrator is the person who's telling the story. And the boy here is the one who's telling the story. So in our story, it says that he doesn't like Jeremy because when he would strike him, when he would strike him out in baseball, he would laugh at him, and also he wouldn't invite him over to his house to play on his trampoline. So he's got a little bit of anger towards Jeremy Ross. What's in it? You may be wondering what exactly is an enemy pie. I was too, but Dad said the recipe was so secret. He couldn't tell me. I begged him to tell me something, anything. I will tell you this, he said. Enemy pie is the fastest known way to get rid of enemies. This got my mind working. What kind of things? Disgusting things? What kind of disgusting things would I put into a pie for an enemy? I brought Dad weeds, but he shook his head. I brought earthworms, but he didn't need those. I gave him the gum I had been chewing. He gave it right back. I went out to play alone. I listened to the sound of my dad making enemy pie. I tried to imagine how horrible it must smell. Instead, I smelled something really, really good coming from our kitchen. I was confused. I went in to ask what was wrong. Enemy pie shouldn't smell this good. But Dad was smart. If enemy pie smelled bad, your enemy would never eat it, he said. He pulled the pie out of the oven. It looked good enough to eat, but still, I wasn't sure how enemy pie worked. What exactly did it do to enemies? Maybe it made their hair fall out. I asked Dad, but he wouldn't tell me. While the pie cooled, he filled me in on my job. There is one part of enemy pie that I can't do. You need to spend a day with your enemy. Even worse, you have to be nice to him. That's the only way enemy pie can work. Are you sure you want to go through with this? Oh, it sounded horrible. It was scary, but it was worth a try. I just had to spend one day with Jeremy Ross. Then he'd be out of my hair for the rest of my life. I knocked on his door. Pause and think. What job does Dad give the narrator? That's right, Spurs. The dad wanted him to go and spend a day with Jeremy. That was his one job. And he had to be nice to him. No enemies allowed. When Jeremy opened the door, he seemed surprised. I was nervous. Can you play? I asked. He looked confused. I'll ask my mom, he said. He came back holding his shoes. We rode bikes and played on the trampoline. Jeremy's mom made us lunch. After lunch, we went to my house. It was strange. It was kind of having fun with my enemy. But I couldn't tell Dad that, since he had worked so hard on that enemy pie. Jeremy knew how to throw a boomerang. He threw it, and it came right back to him. I threw it, and it went into my backyard. When we climbed over the fence to find it, the first thing Jeremy noticed was my treehouse. Can we go inside it? He asked. I knew he was going to ask that, but he was the top person, in fact, the only person on my enemy list. And enemies aren't allowed in my treehouse. But he did teach me to throw a boomerang. And he did let me play on his trampoline. He wasn't being a very good enemy. Okay, I said, but hold on. I climbed up first and tore the enemy list off the wall. We played games until my dad called us down for dinner. Dad made macaroni and cheese, my favorite. Jeremy's too. Maybe Jeremy Ross wasn't so bad after all. I was beginning to think that we should just forget about enemy pie. Pause and think. Why does the narrator tear down the enemy list? Think about that for a minute, Spurs. Right, he tears it down because the only name he had on the enemy list was Jeremy Ross. And since he was getting along with Jeremy Ross, he did not want him to see that his name was on his enemy list. Losing a best enemy. But after dinner, Dad brought out the pie and cut it into slices. Dad, I said, it's sure nice having a new friend in the neighborhood. I was trying to tell him that Jeremy was no longer my enemy. But Dad only smiled and nodded. I think he thought I was just pretending. Wow, Jeremy said, my dad never makes pies like this. Suddenly I panicked. I didn't want Jeremy to eat enemy pie. He was my friend. Jeremy, don't eat it. I think it's poisonous or something. Jeremy crumpled his eyebrows and looked at me funny. I felt relieved. I had saved his life. I was a hero. If it's so bad, Jeremy asked, why has your dad already eaten half of it? I looked at my dad. He was eating enemy pie. Good stuff, was all Dad said. I watched him eat enemy pie. Dad was laughing. Jeremy was happily eating, and neither of them was losing any hair. It seemed safe enough, so I took a tiny taste. Enemy pie was delicious. Afterward, Jeremy invited to play on his trampoline in the morning. I still don't know how to make enemy pie. I still wonder if enemies hate it or if their hair falls out, but I don't know if I'll ever get an answer because I just lost my best enemy. Pause and think. What happened when Jeremy eats the enemy pie? So when Jeremy ate the enemy pie, nothing happened. It was delicious. It was good. His hair didn't fall out. So it really wasn't enemy pie. It was his dad's way of making him find a friend. So let's go back to what theme is. The theme is the message or the moral of the story that the author wants you to learn. So let's think of the lesson. And to me, I'm saying the theme of enemy pie is the best way to get rid of an enemy is to make him your friend. That was the lesson, the takeaway that we can get from that story. So tomorrow's lesson, we're going to go a little bit deeper and find the things that are in the story that supports the theme. And then on Wednesday, we're going to do a shared writing piece so that you can see how to do your response to theme for your own personal book. All right, Spurs, you have a great day. Bye.